Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It is showtime. Welcome in, friends. I'm popping through the chat here, man. You guys are on it already. Yes. That's the topic tonight. What is going on? What do we got to look forward to? Not just this season, but years to come. A bit of a restructuring. But thank you so much for joining us here at Buckeye Huddle Primetime, where we are here every Monday, Wednesday at 8 p.m. And last Wednesday, we had a pretty banging show. Let's keep it banging again. Hit that like button. Get that chat rolling. And if you're not subscribed yet to Buckeye Huddle, I would strongly suggest that you do so and hit that alarm button. Nobody pumps it out like my guys, Tom and Tony. Man, those dudes are on it before it even happens. You know what, though? When it comes to Ohio State losing a big game, whether it be a rivalry game, a playoff game, it creates an unbelievable amount of interest in what I do and what people like me do, particularly the feedback part of it, even more so than a win. Everybody wants to weigh in when a game goes bad, and everybody wants to, whether it's, poo-pooing it or, they did good, blah, blah, we beat ourselves, or the people who want to come down hard on why it happened, who's at fault, etc. Those are the times that I've noticed since I started doing this just about 2 years ago that really get the people out. And unbelievably enough, it's actually why I started the show after 2 losses, my show. So it's people like us when things happen that I really want to know, like, what everybody's thinking. And I appreciate all the feedback that comes after a loss or something like that. And people like you or I who are watching shows on YouTube, listening to podcasts, the really in tune folks. Like, I want to know what those people are thinking. What's the tone? Are they feeling like me when something happens after a big loss, for instance? Or am I off in the minority on an opinion or something? But I can tell you this. I have, outside of big losses, never gotten as much feedback as I have gotten over anything that's gone on at Ohio State since January 2nd over this particular transfer portal. Nothing has compared. I would say even the Texas win, which was a massive amount, Tennessee win, that was a little bit different. But like since January 2nd, every video I've done has been just record number of comments. Everybody wants to weigh in on this. And the majority of people pissed, really, really pissed or nervous. What the hell's going on? How we feeling now, guys? How are we feeling now? Because I got to tell you, feeling a lot better. A couple of days now of positive momentum, very positive momentum, but I certainly get why, all those people were very irritated or upset. The optics were not good. It was more than just fans that were concerned, questioning, is everything okay? Something going on that we haven't heard about? Is Ryan Day leaving? Donor fatigue? Is Ohio State broke? None of those things are going on. Ohio State has pivoted, and they didn't want to pivot. They were forced to pivot. Is that a positive development? I think it's positive for 2026, but there's no way I think you can spin this as a positive development. And I'm not going to try to, because the reason it's not a positive development is because Ohio State was one of the few programs that could still do it the old way and keep it together. A loaded roster from 1 to 85 with an 87% blue chip ratio, highest in the country. Not only could Ohio State do this and almost nobody else could do it, but they could also keep those guys on the roster for the most part. And the only reason they leave is if they didn't see a path to playing time. They got passed over by a younger guy. And when they left, it usually worked out for them and Ohio State, freed up the spot because they weren't going to play. And then they were worth money and opportunity out on the market. But the only way that works is guys taking less than what they're actually worth in the free market. That's the only way that works. That's the only way you can hold that together. Ohio State could not keep all these guys on the roster if they weren't going to take less money than they were worth on the open roster, on the open market. It's just, it wouldn't have worked. And they were able to hold it together for longer than anybody else doing this. And a lot of people think that they should have just paid to retain everybody on the roster. Let's keep in mind, 29 guys in the transfer portal. 29 guys. There is a very good chance we would have seen many of these 29 guys leave anyway. The no clear path to the playing field, those type of guys. Remember, 17 and a half guys leaving the portal every year. But there are 7 or 8 guys that were definitely a surprise. And based on what we're seeing across the country, other schools that kind of operate in Ohio State's stratosphere, not the only ones are the Buckeyes dealing with this year. Other schools that recruit like Ohio State have been affected a lot by this. And it's not just the portal class, the recruiting class as well. Blue chip ratios of the top programs, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, they've dropped drastically and fast. The number of 3-stars, for instance, in the Ohio State 2026 recruiting class, more than 21, 22, 23, 24 combined. Same at Georgia, same at Bama, same at Texas. Because these programs in a moneyless system could load up on blue chips, but you can't in this system. You got to pay them now. You got to pay them. So you're just not going to bring as many of them in a recruiting class. But you still had a ton of them on the roster that you'd already recruited, that have already been in the system. And ironically, when they're at Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, they're worth more coming out of the portal than Bama, Georgia, Ohio State can pay them. So these guys are already on the roster in various stages of development, but they weren't getting paid as much as they most likely could elsewhere. And when I'm talking about these guys right now, specifically, I'm talking about the 7 or 8 guys that really surprised us when they left. They're valuable to other programs, very valuable. And out on the market, they'll get more than Ohio State would have given them in most cases. And the Buckeyes had to make some tough choices here. And they're operating under a new mentality, one that they did not want to do. They wanted it to stay the way it was. But when they recognized what was going on, they were ready to pivot. They were ready to pivot. They wanted the guys to stick around and understand that it would be better for them to develop here, making a little less money now. And in the long run, they would be developed better and make more money. And you know the gig, you know the plan. Is that the best case for everyone? Probably not. But that's what was best for Ohio State, and it worked for them. And the benefit of that old way is, number one, culture. You know your guys. You developed here. Everything that we've grown to enjoy as fans, and they've grown to really excel at in the program. Also, you don't have to go out and retool your starting roster every damn year, which presents a lot of risk. We saw it last year, right? Ethan Onyanwa, Bo Atkinson, Logan George. These risks in the portal, guys you don't know, guys you vet very quickly, it didn't pan out. So you're reloading from what you have been doing, developing, and that's not great. That's not the best way of operating. If you had your choice, you'd do it how Ohio State was doing it. Ohio State liked it that way. And that's why I'm not going to try to spin it and say, like, yeah, this is a good development. It's not. It's not a good development. But the truth is, you just cannot stock as much talent on the roster as you used to be able to from 1 to 85. You can't do it anymore. It's not going to happen. And Ohio State is not going to have as talented of a roster from 1 to 85 as they used to. But they don't need to. You don't need to have a roster that talented to win national championships from 1 to 85. You need to have a roster that talented from 1 to 35. That's what you need. So based on what your needs are, they did the right thing here. They did the right thing pivoting. And I think that they are on the right track here on building a roster for next year that is absolutely going to be another national championship contending roster. But it is something that we all need to understand now is that being a blue blood in college football in 2026, the benefits of it are very much minimized than they used to be. And that's just a fact. You know, we all watch college football, and what we all love as fans is parity, right? Everybody loves parity. We love seeing new teams involved in the playoffs and new teams at the end. Parity comes at the expense of the people that were at the top holding the parity down. Our favorite program happens to be one of those, right? So when this parity is introduced, there are teams that suffer from that. We're one of them. Doesn't mean Ohio State can't be as dominant as it was. It just means that the advantage of simply being a blue blood and being able to stock your roster from 1 to 85 and being able to get big discounts for people to come to your school, it's slowly dropping. Now, the risk, it's a little more every season. The Big Ten is tougher. You got more programs investing. Rolling your helmet out as an Ohio State Buckeye doesn't get you those 10 wins. It just doesn't happen like that anymore. There's going to be a lot more difficult games in the Big Ten year in and year out. And I kind of like it. I honestly feel like this schedule this past year was not advantageous for Ohio State. It allowed them to kind of sleepwalk through a lot of it. Putts about with this, putts about with that, instead of focusing on winning a game. And next year's schedule is a bear. In the playoffs, in a 12-team playoff, you got to win 10. Got to win 10. If it expands to 16, you know, you can win 9, you can lose 3, and you're still in the playoffs every year. But the playoffs just aren't. Let's say, for instance, if the 12-team playoff would have come about, I don't know, 15 years ago, like we'd be looking at each other like there's zero chance we could ever miss this thing. It just can't happen. You know, it's a real possibility when you look at next year's schedule that Ohio State loses 3 games. It is. It's also a real possibility with how difficult the schedule is, we think, right? Sometimes it plays out differently, but you could still get in with 3 losses, depending on which 3 you lose and which ones you win. But my point is, Ohio State and everybody in Ohio State's category, which is but a few, there's just not the gap anymore. And the benefit of being that kind of program isn't there. You've got to do it. You can't just rely on who you are. You got to make the right moves. You got to have excellent coaching. You got to have well-prepared players. And you got to be savvy about how you spend the funds available to you. And the funds available for Ohio State, another big point of contention. Are they handling the money right? Are they going about the house settlement rules right? A lot of people think absolutely not. I don't think we'll know for sure until everything is over in this portal session, because we've now seen the recruiting class. I got a pretty good judge of what they spent there. We saw most of the retention. We're still waiting on a couple of decisions. We've not seen Max Clare. I think we got a pretty good indication of what he's doing based on what we just saw happen today. Kenyatta Jackson, that's a big one out there. It's a big contract floating out there potentially. What's the word on Kenyatta? But I want to start tonight by taking stock of who Ohio State allowed to walk. Who did they allow to walk after or out of this transfer portal class? Were they guys who had a future at OSU, guys that you would not have been surprised if they left, or guys that you would shrug your shoulders about? Inconsequential guys that when they leave, you're like, yeah, I'm going to root for that guy, but no, he was not going to play here. I think there's a whole pile of those type of guys that would have left in a previous year. And these are the following guys that I think these are the guys that didn't surprise us that would have left in a previous year. Ty Howard, Bo Jackson's brother, transferred in from Duquesne last year, was never going to play at Ohio State. Eric Mensah, from the very beginning, when he was brought in, it was kind of just a number. But he did kind of pop a little bit in spring last year, and I just never saw it happening for him. BP Miller. BP, if he ever worked out as a wide receiver, it wasn't going to be till year 3 or year 4. And in this new era, that I mean, those are cool. Like, you'd like Ohio kids to stick around and do that. But is it any kind of thing that you're going to ever get upset about? No. And I don't know where BP's going or why he would do that, but maybe he's going to play quarterback. He did have a Boston College quarterback offer. That would be pretty cool. Keenan Nelson. Keenan Nelson, we brought in the spring 2 portals ago from South Carolina. He never touched the field once. Justin Terry, brought in from West Virginia in last year's spring portal, offensive lineman, was doing pretty well. He was kind of factoring into the plans, but based on Carter Lowe and Sam Greer, I don't think he was ever going to start, so not a big deal. Isaiah Kima, same type deal. The punter, Nick McClarty, who 1 out every 3 went sideways off his damn foot. Walk-on wide receiver Dorian Williams. Demarion Witten came in from Glenville as a tight end, didn't even make it to the tight end room, went directly to the wide receiver room because he wasn't big enough, but he wasn't fast enough in the wide receiver room. You know, what are you going to do with that? Grant Mills, Bakari Miles. I don't know Bakari Miles. Grant Mills was a long snapper. Logan George, absolute bust in the portal last year from FCS school. Dominic Kirks out of Painesville, who was a guy that Ohio State wasn't going to offer and then did eventually offer because you only had Edric Houston in that class, and they were able to flip him from Washington late. And I thought he was coming on a little bit last year, but it's clear he was going to get passed up by several young guys younger than him. So that's another guy that was in there. Sam Dixon was in the portal last year, comes back, can't crack the top 4, back in the portal. Mason Maggs, a quarterback, backup quarterback, walk on. Devontae Armstrong, one of the Armstrong twins, and they were both immediately passed up by the freshman class that walked in last year. Javon McFadden, lineman out of Baltimore. That's a guy that surprised me, but a guy that was not really factoring into the plans, right? When I'm looking at all the guys on the roster in the offensive line, it's kind of a shrug of the shoulders. Then you got guys that played, but we kind of had a feeling we're going to leave anyway, right? Jelani Thurman, this is the 2nd straight year. A lot of people thought he was going to leave. Lincoln Keenholz, you're not keeping Lincoln. We all knew that. We talked about it all year. Bryson Rogers, the writing was on the wall for that. He went and visited LSU on the bye week, went to an LSU game, which just blew my mind, and he posted about it. Malik Hartford and CJ Hicks, as soon as those guys took the red shirt in the middle of the season, I thought the writing was on the wall for them. Tegra Shabola, yeah, man, come on. There was no way he was coming back. He wasn't going to get that starting spot, and that's just embarrassing. Go somewhere to start. We know the drill by now. James Peoples, look, you get passed up by 2 freshmen, 2 guys younger than you, with some other talented backs, coming in. It is what it is. He goes to Penn State, and we'll see what he does there. Mylan Graham, a very great athlete, not a great wide receiver. And it looked like, some things behind the scenes, Ryan Day kind of calling him out for his practice habits. And it was no surprise at all when he entered. So all those guys I just talked about, there's nothing abnormal there. Here's the abnormal guys. And here's the guys that Ohio State had to make decisions on or had to go get a replacement for. Bryce West, Aaron Scott. This was Walt's class, his 2 corners of 2024. 2 top 100 guys, both from Ohio. Bryce West thought to take over Lorenzo Styles' spot at nickel. Aaron Scott potentially getting in a rotation at corner. Maybe Jermaine Matthews can move down to nickel, and Aaron Scott is starting at corner. We weren't sure yet, but both competing or most likely playing a lot next year. Fahim Delane, most likely starting at safety next year, certainly competing for the job. Quincy Porter, without a doubt, in competition to start with Chris Henry Jr., with Mylan Graham. Jarquez Carter, Edric Houston, Jarquez Carter were going to be your 1 and 2, 3 tech, most likely looking at the roster. And Maxwell Roy. Maxwell Roy, a guy who most likely would have been year 3 or year 4, a guy who could get in the rotation at 1 tech. That one also surprised me too. But those guys right there, are all those guys losses for Ohio State? Yes, definitely they're losses. And the way all this news trickled out, just hearing all the names and having those guys mixed in there, it was certainly a blow, and it made everybody kind of feel like, what in the hell is going on? Why aren't you paying to retain your guys? Why aren't you paying to retain guys that we've all had in the plans to start, that you went out and you recruited? You paid guys like Fahim Delane to come in your recruiting class. Why is he leaving now? Did you misevaluate him? I don't think so, because you've been telling us everything's looking great with him. Those are guys that we as fans celebrated their recruitments, watched them come in. We're excited for them. Future was bright. Why are they leaving? Why aren't you paying these guys? And in some instances, for some of those guys, you're not paying them because they wanted top tier dollar. You had several of them come in wanting starting dollars, and you could have paid them as your starter. Could have paid Bryce West as your starter. Could have paid Aaron Scott as a starter. Could have done that. But when they saw all these guys were going to want that, and the seal kind of broke, the seal of guys not falling in line, you had to pivot. You had to pivot and decide, do I want to pay all these guys as starters, or do I want to just take the plunge and start operating like we're seeing a lot of other programs operate successfully? And how is that? Well, I can go ahead and focus on building my roster every single year, my starting roster every year. And that way, I'm going to have a much better starting roster this year. For instance, Fahim Delane, Bryce West. Think of those two guys. When you decide that you're going to pay them for 2026, are you doing it because they're the absolute best guys you can have in 26, or are you doing it because you think Fahim Delane can be good in 26 and maybe an All-American in 27? That factors into the equation in our brains because that's how we've always done it. But is he the best for 2026? What we need to do now is get out of our heads 27. That can't even factor into the equation, because if a guy and his agent are coming in 26 before they've started asking for starter money, what happens when they have a good 26? What do they want in 27 to come back for that All-American year? You got to do this 1 year at a time now. That's the way the market is structured. The money is too big. They can get bigger money elsewhere, and they got to go. And Ohio State has gone out and replaced many of these guys, and we will go over the guys they brought in. We will look at it side by side, and you tell me what's better for 2026. But the important thing to remember here is, moving forward, this is a 1-year proposition at this point for a lot of these guys. For a lot of the guys that you need to make these decisions on, the decision is simple, and it is, what is best for me in this upcoming year as I am building this roster? And we got to quit building it off of potential and projections, but off of productivity. And it sucks, and you didn't want to do it, but your hand has kind of been forced. Your hand has been forced, because if a dude wants starter money and you pay him like a starter and he's not a starter, you're screwed. If he sucks as a starter, you're screwed. You're counting now on a backup. So you got to protect yourself and go get a guy that you know for certain is a starter, even at the expense of what you never wanted to do, sacrifice potentially some of your culture. But I think what we've seen with programs operating like this is their culture still looks relatively very good from the outside looking in. Texas Tech's culture looks good. Indiana's culture looks good. Oregon's culture looks good. Miami's culture, these teams who have strong leadership, like Ohio State, I'm sure believes they do, their culture looks very well. It looks fine doing it this way. And Ohio State still wouldn't do it nearly as much as they're doing it, you wouldn't think. But there's guys here that you lost that you just weren't expecting, man. Like Jarquez Carter, for instance. Jarquez Carter, that one stunned me. I thought Edric Houston, Jarquez Carter, I didn't love the outlook of those two, right? And I wanted Ohio State to bring in another 3-tech. What didn't factor into my mind is for them to bring in another 3-tech, they probably had to let Jarquez walk. Now, if that's the option that they had, what do I want them to do? Well, I want to win a national championship, and Jeremiah's last chance with him. I still think that he's a guy that you could potentially, take over games with, even if you didn't use him that way all the time. You got a lot of big games next year. You really need the most talented roster you can get in 2026, unless everybody is, ready to take a step back so that dudes like Fahim Delane and Bryce West and Aaron Scott can develop. I'm not prepared for that. No, I want the best roster you can absolutely get. Also, we're seeing Ohio State shrink the amount of guys on the roster that they're going to pay. And we're going to see a different recruiting model as well. And I think if this 2026 recruiting class were done after the portal class, it would look a lot different. I also think that this huge amount of guys we have seen leave is kind of a one-time purge. I don't want to say purge. That doesn't even sound right. It's a one-time deal. It might be a 2-time deal, but that's only because this class is much bigger than it would have been had this class happened after the portal class. Because I think we'll see several of those guys from this 2026 recruiting class exit next year, just like we saw this year. But we'll see a pivot in the recruiting class, obviously a pivot with the roster from year to year, and it's just going to be there. There will be more of an annual build and more of an annual build mindset and less of a recruiting and development mindset. A larger percentage of the guys that start every year will be dudes that get brought in every year. But let's talk about the guys they brought in, and let's talk about the improvements that we've seen. And for one, when we pull it up here, projection versus production, Fahim Delane walks out the door. Fahim Delane, a potential starter and a guy with a true freshman, Blaine Bradford, who you kind of looked at as maybe the duo that was going to play the most, maybe a little Leroy Roker in there as well. Today, big news as Terry Moore from Duke gets signed, and my gosh, was that huge. Terry Moore out all last year with an ACL, and that sucks, right? And that makes it risky. That also makes it feasible to get him, right, without breaking the bank. Because if Terry Moore would have entered after last year, Terry Moore would have been the number one safety on the board, would have been really, really expensive, and you could have still got him, but you'd have to knock off a few of these other guys off of there because he would have been too expensive. If Terry Moore's knee is healthy, my gosh, guys, we got us one. We got us one here. And you got him for 1 year. And this is the other part of the plan here. Now, this is not something Ohio State has previously put a premium on. Ohio State previously put a premium on, just like you or I. Guys with multiple years of eligibility in the portal. Yes, that's what we want. Not what we want. Not in this system, not in this new world of annual roster construction. The best guy you can bring in is the guy in his money year that's old as hell, that's played the most he can play in college football. That's the ideal guy. That's Terry Moore. Also, all academic ACC. That's good. That's good. Jalen McClain, very smart as well. Caleb was very smart. We got smart safeties at Ohio State. They got to be to work with Matt G. Now, Jarquez Carter. You lose Jarquez Carter, you got John Walker coming in at 1-tech to take over for K-Mac, and he'll work with Will Smith behind him. John Walker out of UCF, he's got multiple years of eligibility. And look, John Walker, that's a tier 1 guy. So having him for multiple years, that's okay. It's the tier 2 guys. You really want the tier 2 guys to be as veteran as possible. So John Walker at 1-tech. Devin McEwen, that's the wide receiver from UTSA. That is a guy with 3 years in college, production every year, gone up every year, 40 receptions, 45, 60 receptions, fast wide receiver, 6 foot. Is he the Z? Are they going to mix him into the slot? We'll see what happens. Either way, that is a big time deal. It's a big get right there. Earl Little Jr. You sign Earl Little Jr. last night. Earl Little Jr., a lot of people thinking this can't possibly be who they're bringing in to replace Caleb Downs. No, it wasn't. It was Terry Moore. Earl, even though he played safety last year, versatile, he will be the nickel. Earl or Bryce West, who are you picking for 1 year? Well, you got no idea what Bryce is going to get you. Bryce is a projection. I know what Earl did. Now, Earl a little inconsistent, but we can watch Earl, and they've watched Earl and said, I think I know I can make this guy really good in his final year of college football before he goes off to the NFL. A guy that entered the draft, didn't get the projection he was looking for, and pulled back. All right. On we roll. Christian Alliegro, another guy who is in his final year of eligibility. That's the mold we want. He is a big space eater at 6'4", 240. So he fits the Sonny Arvell mold, doesn't fit it with foot speed, but he can do a lot. He's very good at rushing the passer, which is something that Riley Pettijohn and Peyton Pierce haven't shown yet that they're very good at. Alliegro's good at that. He can take on blocks. He's a big linebacker that's production is raised every year. And he kind of got pushed out. At Wisconsin because they had 2 stud freshmen who are going to start. But he'll be a great addition to the room. Tight end Hunter Welsing. Now, that's a good one right there. That's a 6th-year senior. I didn't know 6th years were still going to be around for next year. But this guy was in the class of 2020. It's an old guy. 6'3", 250. Caught 28 balls last year. That's good. That's great. Bring that old guy in from Northwestern. And then we got the big news this evening before I came on with the duo, which I was the fact that these guys were selling themselves as a package deal. I laughed so hard. And I'm like, all right, man, like you got, number one, you got to be the perfect fit. Number two, sure, they're both asking for a lot of money. Former 5-star guys coming from Alabama. And I'm just like, this isn't happening for us. And the Buckeyes make it happen. They bring in edge Quay Rasaw, who is a guy that doesn't perfectly fit the system. How are they going to use him at 6'1", 235? Not quite sure. Love his film. Hasn't played a ton, was injured last year a little bit, played only, I think, started 3 games. Kind of got a little bit of Wally pipped. He was their wolf, right? The wolf position, which is what they brought Justin Hill in to play as a freshman. He went there as a freshman. He played some at the wolf, but that was his spot. So that's kind of, he's a pass rush. He's a linebacker. He's an edge, pass rush specialist type of dude. And he's a hell of an athlete. I trust Matty P to figure out a way to use him. And then James Smith. And James Smith, that's your replacement for Jarquez Carter. James Smith and Edric Houston, infinitely better at 3-tech than Jarquez. So all of these moves that you made, every single one of them has made the 2026 roster better. Older, more veteran, and better. Did you sacrifice? Yes, you sacrificed guys that you had coming up the pipe. If you could have added all that and kept all those guys, that'd be great. That's not reality. It's not reality. Did you make 26 better? Yes, you did. Will you have to work harder in 27 because you've lost some guys that were coming up the pipe developing? Yes, you will. Are they prepared to do it? Yes, they are. And that's where we're at. Now, I'm quite certain after seeing all these signings that many of you who were not feeling very good about this a couple days ago and 4 days ago and 5 days ago are starting to feel a little bit better as you look at the potential of the starting defensive lineup now. And you look at these names on this starting defense, all of a sudden it looks a little better, right? I think it looks a lot better. Looks a lot better than what we were looking at. And you had to do it at the expense of some of the younger guys. Admittedly, you did. So how are we feeling? What is the general vibe from Buckeye Nation as to what's going on here. In addition to that, you did add a couple other parts, right? You added Mason Williams, that's the tight end from Ohio University, from Mogador, right down the street from me. He's played 2 years at Ohio, been there 3 years, I think. And you added 2 tight ends, and that's good, right? So you got Nate Roberts. Now you get Hunter Welsing, Mason Williams, and I think that probably tells us the situation with Max Clare, right? Max probably going to be going to the NFL. I think that's a bad decision for him. I think another year, particularly in the gym, would really help him. He's just get that blocking down, and he did get better as the year went on. Just got to get a little more size and block better. And I think he probably could have gone a lot higher. But anyway, whatever. So he leaves, no big deal. You got 2 competent tight ends to go along with Nate Williams. You'll still have Bennett Christian, somehow got another year of eligibility. My man Sam has a question. What is your question, Sam? I'd love to help you, buddy. Michael, with my opinion almost all the time, you get a backup quarterback, Justin Williams. 1 year of eligibility left. You needed a 4th quarterback. And some people, I saw somebody say, this is a massive move. This guy probably going to be your number 3 quarterback over Luke Fahey. All right. If you want to think that's massive, I'm all for it. I mean, it's a whatever. You got a 4th quarterback. Ryan Day wanted a 4th quarterback. So no big deal there. Shiro says the sky was falling, but for a reason. All right. Drowsy Dragon says we need the pit tackle. Now, I think the pit tackle would be, it was either him or James. And I think they went with the package deal with James Smith and Quay Rasaw. And that, I think, will remove the opportunity of bringing in our dude from Pitt, who I really liked as well. But Michael's feeling much better. The explanation helps a lot. It's comforting, but I'll miss the old days. No doubt, man. There's no doubt. This is not what we wanted. This is not what Ohio State wanted. This is not what you or I wanted. This is not going to feel as good as a fan. Developed here was real. It was unique to us. We were the last of a dying breed. Georgia is still there. They're really the last. They're the final. Georgia was only 9.7% transfer starters. We were 27. Our 27 was very, very low. They're still at 9. They're still working it out like that. We'll see how long they can hold out. I honestly think Ohio State's pivot, you know what you never want to do is the half measure, right? You never want to try to hold on to something when you see the writing on the wall. And the way they did this so quickly, I kind of commend them for it, even though it's never going to feel as good. The hope that I have, Mike, is when they get a collective bargaining system and when they limit the amount of transfers to 1, like all this stuff is going to happen if they get to collective bargaining. We will see just 1 transfer again, or there will be a penalty, right? And that'll limit this tremendously. And once we get to that point, there's a very real possibility that it gets back to where it used to be, a little, at least more like that. I think we'll see it get worse before it gets better, where we're looking at, closer to, if you look at a program like in Indiana, they're at 66% starting transfers. I don't think Ohio State will be that much. I think it'll be more like a 50-50 balance, which is, I believe, where Oregon's at about 50-50. And we were at about closer to 73-27, 73 homegrown guys, 73%. If we get to 50, it'll be a little jarring, but it's also exciting in its own right? Like we're watching these guys come in here, and it's just like, man, hey, there's some really good football players here. There's some, maybe there are a little average, but I think what sets the difference there is maybe if they're not great, like for instance, Earl Little. There's been a lot of people knocking Earl Little in particular in my comments section. Earl Little, I saw him do this and he sucked at this and sucked at that. And you know what? He's also now 22, right? And a 22-year-old, you get better. You get better with age. This is a dude now in his money year, NFL debut. I suspect we'll see him play a lot better this year than he played last year. James Smith is better. My guy thinks as well here. Yeah, the pit tackle heading to ND. I really like the pit tackle myself. Bree Woo. Columbus kid, by the way. These two dudes wanted to leave Bama. I'm not quite sure why they wanted to leave Bama, but it was pretty clear they wanted to leave Bama. A kicker is a must for sure. It's not only a must. I mean, it's an absolute. You don't have a kicker, right? So yes, it's absolute. This is not a like they need to upgrade kicker. There's not one on the roster. This is the one thing that I'm going to be critical about. They passed $250,000 is what it cost for their number one target in the portal at kicker. That's what Texas A&M signed him for. If a kicker wins you one game that you would not have otherwise won, how much is that worth? How much is that worth to Ryan Day out of his pocket? Like, let's be honest here. How much would Ryan Day have paid to take a loss that involved a missed kick and turn it into a win? How much would he pay out of his own pocket in retrospect? Like $250,000 for a kicker that is aces, like that dude is. That's peanuts, bro. Are you kidding me? Same situation with there was another guy last year that was a kicker that ended up. Oh, it was the kicker that went from Miami, Ohio to Alabama. His price tag, I would just remember being like, dude, that is, how are you going to balk at that? You know what I mean? Hawaii Bucks says, the surprises were what we got everyone all crazy. Yeah. The Lunatic Fringe is in shambles. The Lunatic Fringe, I can't tell you how many messages I got telling me, and I've been very reasonable about all this. I've had the bubble guts like everybody else. Like, how's this going to end up? Like, this is a shock. But I've just been saying, like, you can't overreact until we see what they bring in. We got to at least wait and see that part of it. You see the guys leave. Let's see who they bring in to replace them. And now, even the people that were freaking out, I think are feeling a whole lot better. But the amount of hate I got for basically saying, before I flip out, I'm going to wait and see what happens. I'm sunshine pumping because of that. No, I just get the plan. I understand what's going on. And I knew we were going to see these signees. It was just a matter of who it was going to be. Was it going to be like total bargain basement budget guys? Or were they going to get quality players? And I think in most cases here, they got very quality players. And I'm happy about it. And they certainly didn't not spend money. Like, these guys, there's some of these guys here cost a lot of money. Terry Moore cost a lot of money. Walker cost a lot of money. Smith and Rasaw cost a lot of money. Like, this is not penny pinching here. This is some cheap, there's some expensive guys going on. Now Christian Alliegro cost a pretty penny as well. We're talking D-line here. My man says, if Ziggy develops too, our D-line is electric. Yeah, buddy. I don't know. Has anybody heard when we're going to get a potential decision from Kenyatta? This should happen any day now, right? Steve says, with 3,000 players in the portal, how's the new committee going to keep up with all the deals? Buddy, they got 4 full-time employees and growing. So, okay. All 4 of them, they're going to be just great. Going to be just great. Hummus Hero thinks the Blacko likely going to be Innis, maybe Kenyatta. Dragon thinks it's going to be Kenyatta. I haven't put much thought into that yet. Richie Dubs, what's up, brother? Richie Dubs would love to bring Milan back. Carla would love Milan back too. Both fives, Milan and Aaron Scott. They're both fives. Uh, the word on Milan was Ryan Day himself has, and this was probably at about 5 o'clock. Ryan Day himself was in on this one, trying to make this happen, which surprised me and made me feel better about it. I got to be honest, guys, wasn't torn up at all when he left, at all. Thought it was going to happen, wasn't torn up about it. Reason I wasn't torn up about it was because of Ryan Day's comments over the year. 2 separate times for Ryan Day, once for Brian Hartline about Milan Graham, each time a comment about practice. And yeah, he's practice. Yeah, I get it. But when when a coach is saying that in public, it means it's pretty damn bad because they don't put people out like that unless they're really, really irritated. And there was also a time when potentially Milan kind of maybe soft quit the team a little bit, and that's not good. Like, things have not been great for Milan at Ohio State. We'll put it that way. So will we see Milan back? Ryan Day is on it, and the fact that Ryan Day's on it makes me feel like, all right, I feel better about it now. I feel better. If Ryan Day wants him back, that makes me feel good about it. Sure. If he wants him back enough to be the guy to lead point on it, and in addition, raise his money, absolutely. Steve brings up that it's going to be strange to see Peoples in a Penn State uniform. Number one, I'll say he'll look very good in a Penn State uniform. But yes, very strange. But he will look good. He's a yoked up dude. I think the Penn State uniform, guys look pretty good when they're yoked up. Dragon hopes that Sanchez plays like a 5-star next season. He was shaky as a freshman. Yeah, without a doubt. We need to see a big step from him. I believe that Georgia's culture is the opposite of a driving school. I mean, this is a great question. Is James Smith and John Walker both starting? I definitely think John Walker will be starting. What happens to Edric Houston? James Smith, without a doubt, in my opinion, James Smith is better than him today, better than Edric today. Will it be that way come starting day? Well, I mean, Edric, we assume, will continue to improve, right? He has done nothing but improved. He's been so inconsistent. I mean, he makes a play, next play, he gets blown off the ball. And it's just got to get better. What? Jarquez already committed to Miami? Ugh, that hurts. Hellfire Hex, what's up, buddy? Hey, Juck, do you think OSU will go after Bradford's brother from LSU? No, he's not. Unfortunately, he's not really good enough to play at Ohio State, to be quite honest. He's probably in much better standing depth chart wise at LSU. Yeah, kind of a one-time exodus, in my opinion. But you might see a little bit more next year, but it'll be maybe a few more of next year's freshman class. And also, we got to remember, like, the guys that come in moving forward in recruiting, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be top tier guys, high end guys. We might even see Ohio State pay more for the top high end guys. You know, the bidding wars, we see them consistently. We might even see them just go win one, like we just saw with DJ Jacobs. But those guys, they're coming in and they've got to contribute year one, so much so that Ohio State feels comfortable enough paying them big bucks to be starters in year two. And if they're not, then that money goes down and they'll obviously leave. So we'll see that. And then we'll see the developmental guys that I call free stars, which are guys who are willing to come in at basically the team minimum wage and work their way up and want to develop in the system. What we're not going to see are guys that we see now that make up the middle of the class. Guys that are 4 stars that cost you money, that notoriously, that's a bad word, that would have previously been on what we would consider guys who would start their 3rd year, develop year 1, little playing time year 2, start year 3. Those guys wiped out because you can't afford to have that money tied up in a player for 2 years while he rides the pine, only to come back to you after 2 years and say, well, I'm about to start now. Pay me my starter money. Buddy, you didn't earn shit. Sorry. You didn't earn anything. You haven't earned that battle. You haven't earned that starting job. And this is essentially the situation that we just saw play out, right? Now, Bryce West and Aaron Scott, higher rated than kind of the guys I'm talking about. I think guys like that would still be included in the clip, but this is exactly what we're just seeing playing out with these two guys. All right, here I go. I'm starting now. Pay me my starting money. Except you didn't earn that job. Miles Lockhart might beat you out, Bryce. You know what I mean? Like, I might still want to bring somebody in the portal, Bryce. You haven't made me comfortable enough for me to not bring someone in from the portal. So no, I'm not giving you $800,000. All right, well, Wisconsin will. Well, then you'll just have to go, and I'll have to go bring in Earl Little Jr. And that's what happened. There you go. Wasn't Chris Wanke 28 when he won the Heisman? He damn sure was, man. That Eric is the most positive Buckeye fan you will ever meet. OSU going to get whipped by Texas. Look at who Texas brought in. Texas brought in a lot of Texas did exactly what we did. Exactly what we did. There are a bunch of younger guys on Texas roster that they wiped off the payroll, that they are not paying to come back, and they went out and bought 1-year guys. That's what they did. It's exactly what they did. Now, they spent a little more on those 1-year guys, but they freed up a lot of younger guys. You know, they lost Elijah Barnes, 5-star linebacker that they paid a ton of money for, Jamie French that they paid a ton of money for, young guys, young dudes. Big time freshman walking out, and they obviously went out and got Hollywood Smothers, got Cam Coleman, got Riley from the running back from Arizona State, got who else did they get? Oh, they got our boy, our linebacker from Pitt. They got him too. So they did well. They got some high-end talent for sure, but they mortgaged the future for it too. They let a bunch of guys who they spent forever winning their recruitments and a lot of money winning their recruitments on, they set that money on fire. Those guys are gone. They're off the roster. And it's essentially the same exact situation, right? And that's the way it's going to be. Got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. Absolutely. No, I did not forget about Jalen McClain. I was obviously the Jalen McClain, and then aside from him, I was talking about Blaine Bradford rotating in that spot with that other safety. McClain's locked down on that one. Can we go after a kicker who is committed to another school before the portal closes? Yes, if he is committed and not like signed his paper. Yeah, we saw quite a few guys flip. Matter of fact, Texas running back had committed to Alabama, Hollywood Smothers out of NC State, and then he flipped. I really wanted him too. I really wanted him as a running back, but I do think that we're still going to see another running back brought into this class here, this portal class. Mark says, I will happily drive Edric Houston to the Columbus airport and pay for his flight so we can use that wasted money on a place kicker, running back, or cornerback. Mark, not a fan of what Edric has brought so far. James Barron, do you think Tavian St. Clair is willing to sit for a third year to start in 2027? Start in 2027. So he sat last year as a true freshman, going to sit as in his second year in 2026, then start in 2027. So that would be sitting just 2 years. Unless you mean in 2028, but I don't know. Does that mean you think Julian would come back as a senior year? Because that's the only way that he would have to sit for 3 years is if Julian came back as a senior. But I honestly think that that's just not that's just not going to happen, right? The answer is no, probably no. He'd go somewhere else if he had to sit for 3 years. That just doesn't happen anymore. Hope he's developing great. I still feel good about Kenyatta. How you guys feeling about Kenyatta? Oh, geez. Gerdeman said Mateen Bagnani. That's the UCLA kicker that had the boomer. This guy has like 4 makes of over 50, including a 57-yarder. He'll be sticking at UCLA. Unbelievable. Sam asked me if I forgot about Jalen McClain. No. What's up with Josh Mickens? Tony and I had a discussion about Josh Mickens and the amazement that we haven't seen him enter the portal. And I think that there are some guys who might be resigned to the fact that they're not going to play, and that's fine. They like where they're at. They don't want to go anywhere. But there's no way he plays. 0 chance. But he wants to stay, which I guess we love. We love those kind of guys, right? Can we talk about Oregon bringing in Dylan Raiola, guys? How great was that? Good stuff there. I laughed so hard. I was recording a show and that message came up. Oh, look, there it is. You guys were already talking about it. I'm a little behind you here. Richie Dubs feels like we need to get a little faster at wide receiver. Like we're almost too big. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. There is certainly no Zachariah Branch. And I like to have one of those guys. Texas buys players with Lambos, but doesn't develop them. Yeah, Jamie French to Michigan. Listen, I love it. I love it. I can't stand that kid and never could. I can finally say it. I hate that son of a gun. I can't stand him. He's perfect for there. Brad, I didn't see Carter's comments. I saw what his mom said. I messaged him. He didn't message me back, which didn't surprise me. I've talked to him, I mean, probably just as recently as a month ago. You guys heard Haynes wants 3.5 million. That would be something coming off that injury. Yeah, buddy. I don't think Damon Wilson's in the cards, man. I don't know. I'd love him too. I wanted him more than Chaz for sure. Anyway. All right, guys. I've done several shows today with several updates, and I got to answer this first. So Damon Wilson's being sued by Georgia. It's a bullshit lawsuit. Ohio State shouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Georgia is way out of line, man. Way out of line. Damon's countersuing them, and I hope he wins. But anyway, all right. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the great conversation. And we will be back, of course, at Legend Bay is your branch. I love the sounds of that. We'll be back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. to talk more about this. I'm sure we'll have some more additions to discuss this further, and it'll be a whole lot of fun. But feeling better now that it's Monday evening. Things are coming together. We're seeing the plan come together, and it can put a smile on your face. At minimum, the roster looks very good for 26 on the defensive side of the ball, right? It looks very good. I think it looks very good. So you lose some of the guys coming up the pipe, you look better in 2026. Sacrifices and payoffs, can't have it all. But the best thing is for 26 to be fantastic. Try to win a national championship. So appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.